I'm very honored to be with you today and to be invited to address this audience. The Toronto Club, a Canadian club in Toronto and the Club Canadien are very important to the city and also to Canada. Je voudrais commencer par féliciter le Club Canadien de Toronto pour son apport aux faits français ici dans la ville reine. Comme son mandat le dénonce, si vous allez voir sur son site, le Club Canadien est une tribune qui offre des rendez-vous en français, donnant l'occasion aux francophones et francophiles de Toronto d'échanger, de s'enrichir et d'établir de nouveaux contacts. Le club agit comme un élément catalyseur et rassembleur de la communauté francophone à Toronto au niveau du milieu des affaires, du milieu académique, du milieu culturel et gouvernementaux. Bravo pour cette initiative au Club canadien et merci d'avoir organisé cet événement ensemble, démontrant l'importance de nos deux grandes langues au Canada. La question qui est posée aujourd'hui est simple, mais pourtant un petit peu troublante, provocante. Y a-t-il une valeur au service du conseiller financier? So, is there any value in financial advice? Plusieurs d'entre vous diront que c'est une question rhétorique, et vous n'avez pas tort. Indeed, I hope to convey to you three critical messages. First, the major sources of the polemic around the value of advice lies in the confusions concerning what is the value of advice. If it is defined as the potential impact of financial advice on the creation of financial wealth over time, as we will see, there is substantial value in financial advice. My second point, c'est que le conseil financier a une valeur que nous devrions nous préoccuper pour s'assurer que tous les Canadiens ont accès au conseil financier. C'est pourquoi intervenir dans les méthodes de rémunération des conseillers financiers, comme par exemple en bannissant les commissions intégrées dans les fonds communs de placement, pourrait, et on le verra, avoir un effet très négatif sur l'accès au conseil financier pour les Canadiens. Et mon troisième point, c'est qu'il faut améliorer la qualité des services conseils au Canada, et à cet effet, il sera avantageux que l'industrie financière et les autorités réglementaires travaillent de plus en plus ensemble à cet effet. So, to begin, let me say that you probably know this, but a large proportion of Canadians across all wealth bands rely on the guidance of the financial advisors for their investment. According to Investor Economics, 62% of the personal financial assets in this country, with a total amount of $3.6 trillion at the end of 2014, are held in accounts where a financial advisor is engaged. The remaining 38% of personal financial assets that are not held in the advice relationship, and for the most part, two-thirds, are bank deposit, GICs, or assets held by financial savvy and self-advised people like you guys and girls. Maybe not. The other point is that contrary to what you may perceive and many will say, financial advice is not only used by the rich, and it's not only for the rich. In fact, the proportion of households using financial advice is remarkably constant across income groups. It varies between 31 and 34%. This is much more than what you will find in other countries like UK, Australia, Ireland, where financial advice is used at a level around 10%. So Canadians are users of financial advice in a proportion that is very large compared to other countries. In addition, research has shown that 40% of the case where an advice relationship was initiated, the amount of money under management was lower than $10,000. Moreover, in 70% of the case, the amount under management was around $50,000, which means that we have to remember that when people start having a relationship with an advisor, they're not rich. They start with what they have. Il est utile de rappeler cependant que le service conseil financier, c'est un continuum. On a plusieurs types de conseils financiers. À un bout du spectre, il n'y a pratiquement aucun conseil qui est offert et l'individu fait ses transactions. Et à l'autre bout, on a une relation très intime entre le conseiller et son client où on lui procure des services qui sont sur mesure et souvent de haut de gamme. Entre les deux, on a une kyrielle de modèles et récemment, on a vu les conseillers robots arriver sur le marché. In this context of financial advice, we are very happy and we applaud the move by regulators to make account-level rate of return, the cost of financial advice, and product distribution more transparent, which will significantly improve the information investors have to evaluate and appraise the value of the advice they receive against the cost of that advice. We fully support CRM2, and I am pleased to share with you that Investors Group, which is part of our financial corporation group company, has been reporting account-level rate of return compliant with CRM2 requirements for 1, 3, and 5 years periods to the vast majority of its clients for the statement period ending last June. This is well in advance of the schedule. We do support strongly transparency and disclosure because precisely we believe strongly in the value of advice for customer, and that's why transparency is so important. Here's my first critical message. Contrary to what most people will think when we think about a financial advisor, we do not believe that the value of advice is mainly and strictly restricted to some superior way of picking asset, which is important, picking asset or picking mutual funds. Some studies seek to demonstrate that even in the case where an advisor generates some added value, the value that we call in the technical world the alpha over the benchmark, that value, they say, is consumed by the cost of advice charged to clients. Well, even if that were true, and I think that the reality is more complex than this study would pretend, that's beside the point. Why is that? Today, as was just mentioned, financial markets are much more complex than they were before, and that will be forever. The investors have so many choices to make. Which investment strategy? Will it be passive? Will it be active? Will it be hybrid? Will it be a wrap account? Which asset? Which risk? Bonds, equity, absolute return, relative return, domestic, international risk, developed market exposure, emerging market exposure, real estate, hedge fund, to name a few. The choice is fantastically great and numerous. Financial advisors come in. They support their clients in what is this universe of complex financial products and strategies. The value they provide lies in helping clients define their investment policy, construct their portfolio, and also rebalance them over time. This is what we call the value associated with the beta story. That is, where do you have to be exposed to the marketplace? And as you know, the beta is quite important because the structure of your portfolio, in many cases, will decide how much money you'll make over time and which risk you will have, obviously. And by the way, we know that many of the decisions concerning your beta, how you construct and rebalance your portfolio, may well be in conflict with a pure alpha decision. To give an example, rebalancing the portfolio after a major change in relative prices, relative values, or relative values of the funds may induce a decision to reduce the ownership of the best performing funds or best performing assets because you are rebalancing, which means that if you are measuring the value of advice at the point of the alpha, you'll miss the impact from beta. So you get a right conclusion, but the scope is not the right one. But more importantly, financial advisors encourage their clients to save in the first place. They help them to stay the course in volatile time. This is the saving, investment, market discipline supported by what we can call behavioral advice. that Morningstar referred to as gamma. And this gamma corresponds also to a lot of advice concerning credit, debt management, tax optimization, real estate, and estate planning. All this is part of the relationship with the advisor and his clients. And as Pierre Lortie has noted in a forthcoming paper, while it is true that individual financial literacy is laudable, valuable for most individuals, certainly in the aggregate, it is not sufficient to compensate for individual behavior weaknesses that we know from behavioral economics, such as procrastination, inertia, loss aversion, all these things that the market and people know. That's why the financial advisor come in. That's what he does, is to counterbalance these weaknesses, which are natural and that we know about now. En somme, la valeur du service conseil ne vient pas du stock picking de l'alpha, elle vient aussi du bêta, mais surtout du gamma. J'aimerais pousser cet aspect plus loin en vous parlant d'un résultat important d'une étude qui a été publiée récemment. An econometric study by Professor Claude Montmarket from Cyrano, published in the Annals of Economics and Finance, shows that the presence of financial advisors, when engaged for a period of 4 years and more, contribute positively and significantly to the level of asset when the impact of all of the variables are taken into account. For instance, after 15 years or more with the financial advisors, they also accumulate 2.73 more assets. This is a lot than a non-advised household. That difference is the outcome not by stock picking mainly, but basically to the improved saving discipline over time. Moreover, and you are certainly all aware, and we just discussed that, the debate about are Canadians ready for retirement? Well, here also, a recent study by McKinsey, published this year, showed that households that do not have an employer pension plan, but are nevertheless on track to maintain their standard of living in retirement, those households are twice likely to use the financial advisors as those households that are not on track. It means something. Finalement, récemment, le Conference Board nous montrait que sur le plan macroéconomique, la valeur des conseils financiers, parce qu'elle a un effet positif sur l'épargne à long terme, l'épargne volontaire, a un impact à long terme sur la croissance économique et son potentiel. Comme vous le voyez, chez nous, nous sommes très convaincus qu'il y a une valeur au service conseil et c'est pour cette raison qu'il est justifié de payer pour ce service. So, how do Canadians pay for advice? In our marketplace, broadly speaking, there exists two approaches to access and pay for financial advice. They largely depend on the size of the investment account. On the one end, the fee-based advisor charges an asset-based fee directly to the investor, while on the other end, the commission-based advisor is paid a trailing commission from the fund manufacturer. Regardless of the method of compensation, the service delivery and the costs are similar. And as a result of CRM2, total transparency and information provided to investors are essentially consistent between the two approaches. Pour l'investisseur, l'avantage principal d'une approche basée sur les honoraires est qu'il devient possible de négocier ses frais en fonction de la taille des fonds administrés. En conséquence, c'est un modèle parfait qui convient pour les investisseurs plus fortunés. Dans ce cas, le conseil financier ne représente qu'un faible pourcentage des frais total de l'investissement. La plupart des conseillers financiers fonctionnant avec ce modèle d'honoraires vont exiger un montant minimum, soit 100 000, mais de plus en plus 250 000, avant d'ouvrir un compte. These investment minimums make the fee-based advice very suitable to investors with a lot of investment, a lot of assets, but not for those who have little to invest or are starting in life to invest. This is the key point. This is why the vast majority of investors, when they seek out, they look at the more simple, accessible, commission-based compensation model where the advisor will not typically require any minimum investment. Remember that 3/4 of the advice relationship began with financial asset of no more than $50,000. This is reality. In Canada, the commission-based compensation model make it possible for entrepreneurial advisor to provide much-needed access to advice and services to all households, regardless of income level, wealth level, and geographic situation. These are households that higher-end fee-based advisor would find unprofitable. At a time where large financial companies are reducing services, closing office, moving their clients online, financial advisors can continue to grow their business by building long-term relationships with their clients. These personal relationships are the best way to help individuals and families to reach their financial goals and be able to retire correctly. By the way, you've certainly been hearing frequently that Canadian financial media will tell you many times that Canadian mutual funds costs are higher in Canada than the US. I could not resist to say that this is not tout à fait exact. Sure, our management expense ratio, which is the way we measure the total cost of the mutual funds for the investors, include in that not only the manufacturing cost, but also the cost of distribution, the fee, the commission that is paid to the dealer. In the United States, on the other hand, it's separate. The financial advice is charged separately. So no surprise if you compare the management expense ratio between the two countries, you get a false conclusion. By the way, in our country it is taxed, and in other countries it's not. So you have to take into account what is behind all this. This is my second critical message. While some believe that the commission-based model used by mutual fund company to pay an advisor, some believe that this results in an unmanageable conflict of interest. And here we come to the matter. We take the view that this is an essential feature that make financial advice accessible to middle income and lower asset investors. And this is key for the future of the country. Where there is an ongoing embedded compensation in mutual fund, the advisor, you will realize that, will typically face and incur a higher cost of providing advice when you start the relationship at the beginning. But they do so in return with the perspective of a reward over time through trailing commission, which track the growth of the asset of the would-be customer and clients. So this long-term aspect is because of that both the clients and the advisor are not in conflict of interest. They share an interest of building the wealth of the clients in the future. The access to advice is critical, and this is why tinkering with the commission-based model might trigger an advice gap in this country that would undermine the build-up of individual savings in Canada and for major negative consequence. Such an advice gap would be bound to have also negative impact on the making of critical decisions by households and persons close to retirement. At that point in life, the timing of your retirement is a question, the optimal portfolio is a question, the issue of what to do with your money, how much do you convert into guaranteed income, how much to keep in liquidity, all these are questions that more Canadians need advice on. So it's not the time to reduce the access to advice. In fact, the impact of changing the commission base, we know a little bit about it because other countries have done that. Recently, in the UK, as a result of what is called a Retail Distribution Review, RDR, for those in the business, in which the payment of fee or commission to distributors by manufacturer was prohibited. It's no longer legal to do that in the UK. The resulting advice gap is very real and directly observable in a report recently done by the same Financial Conduct Authority. In that case, the number of financial advisors reduced by almost a quarter of that. Plus important encore, le nombre de conseillers financiers qui ont quitté les affaires a commencé à se réaliser dès l'annonce, avant même que la loi soit implantée. So they were very quick, and what happened is that those who left, and those who are still in the business choose to go after clients that were ready to pay with a fee approach as opposed to a commission one. This has left many households in the UK with a significantly reduced access to financial advice, and we observe a sharp decline in the opening of investment account by less than 1 people. This decline is of sufficient concern in the UK that Her Majesty Treasury just launched in October 2015, a few weeks ago, a financial advice market review this time, where terms of reference specifically include examining the advice gap for those people who want to work hard, do the right thing, and get on in life, but do not have significant wealth. Could not be more precise. The expectation is that in the next budget in 2016, the UK government will come with a series of measures to reintroduce advice in the system, reintroduce access to advice. Looking forward to see how they do that. I think the UK's experience is a great lesson for us in this country. Don't remember we used that at 30%, they were only at 10%. Now, I will want to address directly a concern that the very structure of commission-based compensation model create, according to some approach, an irreparable conflict of interest between the financial advisors and their clients. In a recent study, Professor Douglas Cumming from York University reached 2 conclusions. First, fund performance attract net higher sales funds. Second, net sales are more sensitive to fund performance under a fee-based model than under a commission-based model. This study must be read. It's an interesting study. It's based on a unique data set, and it's measured a relationship between compensation structure and flow of funds. This is quite novel, and it's a welcome study in the current debate. I will note, however, 2 things. First, if you read the study, you will realize the methodology itself is quite complex, but more importantly, the actual results are more nuanced than some of the early comments came out of it. More importantly, Professor Cummings' study must be included in the category of studies that intend to measure the impact of value of advice on alpha. That is, the impact of the compensation model on the probability of picking the best performing funds among all comparable funds of the same category. And this is measured by the net flow of funds. In other words, the study measured the impact not at the gamma level, but at the alpha, which is okay, which is only part of the story. As I explained earlier, the nature of the advice is much more complex. It's around 3 aspects, the alpha, the beta, and the gamma, and the measure must be at the end. What is the impact of all this on the client's value of wealth, net wealth, including debt, net of debt, over time? In sum, financial flows and financial performance are only one aspect of the ultimate goal, which is to build up financial wealth over time. To achieve that goal, however, the essential ingredient is the quality of financial advice. And here, and this is my 3rd remark, there's room to improvement in Canada. And the best way would be to have a larger cooperation between the industry and the regulator. Let me go to that. Right now, we start from a good point, parce qu'en effet, nous avons plusieurs choses dans le système de réglementation qui jouent en la faveur de la qualité du service de conseil. La transparence, la divulgation, qui va venir avec CRM2, ce qu'on traduit en français par MRCC2, vont standardiser et permettre aux clients de bien voir l'expérience qu'ils ont avec le conseiller financier. Secondly, in addition to all this, there exists a legal standard set by IROC and MFDA which establish a high bar for professional conduct. Finally, current regulatory standards for advisor in Canada are quite comparable and in some cases better than standard you would find in the US, UK, and Australia. And this is confirmed by a recent legal review. But still, there is really room for improvement in Canada about financial advice, concerning financial advice. And this has been shown recently by a mystery shopping exercise sponsored by the Ontario Security Commission with the collaboration of IROC and FDA. Let me conclude by saying that we can improve all this if we were to agree on the three following measures. We must improve the quality of advice in Canada as we want to maintain access and we believe in its value. First, let us define and enforce professional qualification standards as embodied in professional designations such as the certified financial planners. That suppose here a common formal training with agreed curriculum. And I think governments are on that page. Quebec has done a lot on that, and I believe Ontario is moving that too, in that direction. Second, like any other professional sector, permanent training and education should be the rule. There's no, it's normal to have that. Any professional need to do that, from accounting to other professions. Third, which is the most important thing, and I'm concluding like this, on this, upholding these standards and ensuring that they are continually met is of the utmost importance. For that purpose, we need imagination from both the regulatory authorities and the industry to cooperate and to develop appropriate ways to value and appreciate and evaluate what is created as a net value resulting from a long-term client-advisor relationship. And to be clear, not only at the spot of eventual first meeting. It has to be deep and it has to be regular. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to me. I want to let you with three things. There's value of advice and tremendous value. It's a complex phenomena. We have to look at the net result, at the gamma. Be careful about not losing access, but increasing access, and it has to do with how we pay advisor. And third, the industry and the regulator, instead of going backward, should go forward and build on new rules, new capacity, and new ways to measure the value of advice in the interest of Canadians. Merci beaucoup.